Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is March the 22nd, 2022, and today we're going to be taking a look at the equinox. We're going to look at why the equinox should be used in calculating the date of our feast days, as well as which equinox should be used in calculating the beginning of the year. We're going to do most of this through agriculture, but we're also going to be taking a look at, we're going to be doing some comparisons in the agriculture between the Bible and what it says, and compare it to the agriculture that is being currently taught to us that Israel has, what they do and how they plant and what they plant. So, but we're going to start off with a few scriptures just to set things up, and then we'll go and take a look at the agriculture. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. So it tells you here in this very first verse that the lights, let me read it again. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and also let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." This word seasons here is the same word that's used for feasts. The seasons, the word can also mean time. Hold on. Just a moment, let me choose the correct dictionary here. Well, that's okay. We'll go ahead and do a comparison now. No, never mind. Let's just read through it. An appointment, that is a fixed time or season, specifically a festival, conventionally a year, an assembly. This is the same word that's used for feasts. It also can mean, okay, alrighty. It also can be translated as time. So you do need to consider the lights in the firmament for the feast days. Now, I have thought about this, but it is very clear that the lights that are in the firmament are the ones that are used for the feast days. Now, if you have seen our study, the study that I have done in regards to the structure of the earth that we live upon, you know that the stars are not in the firmament. It is the sun and the moon. And then above that are the planets. Well, above that is the layer of water, and then the planets. And the stars are actually in the third heaven where God is. They're not in our firmament, and so they cannot be used to calculate the feast days. They cannot be used for signs. I looked up the in Matthew 24 where it says the stars are going to fall from heaven. That's at the very end. That's not a sign of anything. The stars are going to fall from heaven right before when the heavens shake. Right at the very end. It's not a sign. And I think there was a place where it says sign is the stars. That's constellation. That's the planets. I didn't do a thorough search because I can see here it says in the firmament. And I know that the stars are not in the firmament. So currently, I just can't believe that the stars are used at all. Now, I know that there's a lot of writing about the story in the stars. I mean, the gospel in the stars. However, that's not a sign. It's not to be used to be calculating our season. The sun, the moon, and the planets are in the firmament. Therefore, these things are used to calculate. Now, we don't need to use those anymore because we've got our computer and we know the calculation and we can just type it up. But there's going to be a pattern in all of these things that you can use without your computer, and you can determine where you are in God's calendar and when the feast days are to occur. And that's the interpretation. Okay? Lights in the firmament. The stars are not in the firmament. They're in the third heaven. So let's go ahead. Now, I didn't sort my verses, so we're going to be skipping around a little bit here. So we are going to be taking a look at the agriculture in can't remember if I mentioned it. One of the ways that we're going to be determining the equinox is we are going to be taking a look at the agriculture in Jerusalem, and we're going to compare it to what the Bible says. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this, and then we're going to go and take a look at the agriculture, and we'll probably be bouncing back and forth from the scriptures to the data that I got in regards to Jerusalem. So Exodus 9:31. Now, in Exodus, we know that Moses and the people of God were coming out of Egypt. And right after they came out of Egypt, God told him, this is going to be for you the beginning of months. So they came out of Egypt and celebrated the Passover during the first month. And we have a hint here as to when the first month is. It says during the first month, and the flax and the barley were smitten, for the barley was in the ear and the flax was bold. And in the ear, I think it just means that it was ripened. Meaning to be tender, green, that is, it's green. Green ears of corn. Hold on a moment. I put the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear. I think it just means that it's ripened. Hold on. Okay, I looked up a different interpretation. This is the Good News Bible. The flax and the barley were ruined because the barley was ripe and the flax was budding. And that's what I thought it meant, so I'm good with that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at some of the data that I have in regards to the agriculture in Jerusalem. Now, I have illustrations as well, and graphs and charts and stuff like that, and I pulled them from these two websites. But a lot of the information I just got from Google. So, weather in Jerusalem. The cool season lasts from 3.1 months, from December the 7th to March the 10th, with an average daily high temperature below 59 degrees. The coldest month of the year in Jerusalem is January, with an average low of 41 degrees Fahrenheit and a high of 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's take a look at the charts before we go further into this. Now, one of the things that I did was I looked at the, it's called the plant, I'm drawing a blank, I don't know. It's the areas that you plant in are designated by numbers. And I looked to see what type of zone Jerusalem was. And I looked under the plant zones because Google, they anticipate us to look at Google. So they pretty much fixed all of that. So I looked at the plant zones, and we're going to be taking a look at that. And this tells you what each plant zone is. So zone 1 has an average temperature for planting anyway. So the ground probably is going to be -50 to -60 Celsius. It gives you, and then it goes down. And as it gets hotter, the numbers get higher. Now, Jerusalem is zone 10B on average. This one tells you exactly what it is. Plants for your growing zone. And I think I got this from a Canada website. Canadian Garden Zone Maps, yeah. But it's still modern, it's still used. And this is the zone of America. So you can see the cold is here. I didn't go down far enough for you to see the hotter zones. But this is the way our map looks as far as planting. This is Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem, it's considered a 10B zone because that's what most of it is. That's what most of the area is. But you can see it starts at 7B and then it goes to 12A. Now 7B, you can see there's just a tiny little spot here with green in it. So that would be the 7B. And then the 8, there was a little bit of yellow. A little bit of yellow there. A little bit down here. There's a little green down here as well. And this, no, that's brown. So that's going to be, it's going to be 9. But you can see that it's mostly going to be it's going to mostly be zone 10B. So let's go ahead and continue. This is Mississippi, because you guys know that I believe that Mississippi is where it's where Jerusalem originated. It's somewhere in this area. Jerusalem, no, these southern states. So this is the zone for Mississippi. Oh, hold on. Do I have the key here? I don't have the key on this one. I have it on one of them. So, hold on. Okay. I don't know how this is going to film, but we're going to get through it. It's going to get through this. Okay. So we're going to look at some of the climate information for Jerusalem. We don't need that. Oh, average high and low temperatures in Jerusalem. Okay, so we did get this information off of Google as well. It tells you that the low is 41, the average high is around 53, and then it goes up to 85 and 66. Now, this is fine, but if you are familiar with that area, most of the areas there are deserts. And 85 is not a high for a desert area. That's okay though, because I'm just going to be honest with you. While I was there, the reason why I'm so suspicious now, and I'm not normally this way, is while I was researching this, I told you guys they pretty much watch everything I do. This is cloud cover. We don't need this. Well, we'll take a look at it real quick. Cloud cover. There's pretty much no cloud cover from June, July, August, and September. About 3% for June, 0, 0, and then September it starts to build up again. So, yeah, a little bit. But anyway, they pretty much watch everything I do on the computer for sure. But they don't usually mess with me. But when I was researching this, I just felt like they kept interfering with my investigation. I ended up having to restart my computer. I wasn't really happy about it because I wasn't even really getting that much from it. But since it happened, I'm determined to put this in. I'm determined to put this information in this study. Anyway, let's continue on. Precipitation. We don't need that. Here we go. Let's look at the rainfall. Average monthly rainfall in Jerusalem. If you don't want to see this, by the way, you can probably skip to the end. The last study at the end is going to give the details about when. It's going to give the details about when the equinox begins, what the beginning of the year is. So anyway, average monthly rainfall. So this black line is the average monthly rainfall. This gray line right here, that's the 25 to 75% mark. And then from 10 to 90% is the lighter gray. So there's only a 10% chance that they're going to get more than 4 inches of rain, even in its rainy, during its rainiest time in January, February, December. They will only get 3 inches of rain. Now, this line right here, this is the snow. So, less than 1 inch of snow, but near the end of February, let's see, I printed this out on March the 15th. So it's March the 15th. So right about here would be March. So right at the very end of February, they'll get about a little bit less than a half an inch. And then it goes down and it disappears, of course. And there's practically none here in December, as you can see. And it shows you here in numbers. 0 rain in June, July, August, and September. 0.3 in October. And then it builds up to about an average of 1.8 inches in January. And then it begins to go down 1.6 inches in February. March and April decrease back down to 0 in the summer. I think that's all we needed to look at on here. Let's just go through this quickly and see. Water temperature. Okay, that's, hold on. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. And this is Jerusalem, and this line right here, when I had to restart my computer, that started popping up on a lot of my printouts, on a lot of my screen copies. We've already looked at Jerusalem. I put this in here because I wanted to show you the green, I think, but anyway, I've already shown you I think I wanted to show you Jerusalem. Jerusalem is what I wanted to show you. Jerusalem is a zone 10B. That's why I have it here, because it's marked here, Jerusalem, zone 10B. So this is Mississippi. Mississippi is zone 7B, 8A, 8B, and 9A. I can't remember what the average is, I'm sorry. But we're going to stop here. We'll come back to the illustrations in a moment. Let's go ahead and look at the data that I pulled up for Jerusalem off of Google and various websites. So, barley. Plant in early spring when soil is workable. Barley requires at least 90 days from seed to harvest, so the earlier it is planted, the better chance of ripened seed before freezing temperatures encroach. In warmer areas, plant in fall for a spring harvest. So it's planted. It's planted when it's warm, because you plant it in warmer areas. You can plant it in fall, but it says for a spring harvest, which is very odd because it has just told us that it only takes 90 days to harvest. So unless you're planting it maybe at the end of fall during winter, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't. And we're going to see a lot of that. If it takes 90 days to grow and you plant it in fall, it's going to be harvested at the end of fall or in winter. You have to plant it in winter because winter is 3 months in order for you to harvest it in spring. Okay, so let's go on. What zones does barley grow in? Winter barley cover crops prefer cool, dry growing regions and are hardy to USDA growing zones 8 or warmer, which is great because Jerusalem is 10B. Planted in the spring, home garden barley has a short growth period and as such can be planted farther north than other grains, but it's not planted in the spring. It's planted in the summer. However, remember that chart I showed you guys last time? Let's look at that chart. Because this chart says that on the 7th month, September and October, they get their first rains. Now that didn't match the data because they got practically 0 rain on the 7th month. Here we are. 0 rain in September, 0.03 in October. It conflicts. But they say they get their first rains in September, October. They begin the plowing. Then they begin planting their grain. The grain planting continues throughout the next month. That's 3 months. Then they get their main rains in December, January. That does match up. In January and February they wait. Then they get more spring rains in February and March. So then they harvest the barley in March and April. So how many months is that? October, November, December, January, February, March, and then they begin to harvest in April. 7 months almost in order to harvest one crop. And if it's wheat, it's worse. And I have data for that from Google. If it's wheat, it's worse. Some of the data that I got from Google said that wheat in Jerusalem takes a year to grow. It takes 120 days to grow wheat. But in Jerusalem, apparently, it can take as long as a year. Hold on, wrong screen. But let's continue. Where did we leave off here? What zones does barley grow in? Oh, another thing I want to point out is I asked about barley, but it gave me winter barley cover crops. So I had to figure out what a cover crop was. Does barley survive winter? Hold on. Does barley survive winter? I got it out of order, but that's okay. Let's read this and then we'll go to cover crops. Winter barley is potentially higher yielding than spring barley in areas where it is adaptable. However, winter barley varieties are generally not as tolerant to cold as other winter cereals. No, because winter wheat is grown during the winter. Barley, I tried to find it online. I didn't try very hard, to be fair, but it wasn't available. I saw it listed, but it was sold out. They don't sell it because nobody's going to plant a crop of barley in the winter and have it all die. Nobody's going to do that. They're going to be mad. They're going to think they got bad seeds. They're setting themselves up for problems. What is a cover crop? Cover crops for sustainable A cover crop is a plant that is used primarily to slow erosion, improve soil health, enhance water availability, smother weeds, help control pests and diseases. Is barley a good cover crop? Winter barley is an excellent cover crop. Be sure to use varieties with improved disease resistance and winter hardiness. Warning, that's what it's saying right here. Warning, don't plant it in winter. Okay, I'm going to stop being skeptical. Can you use barley as a cover crop? Barley can be used as a winter annual cover crop wherever it is grown as a winter grain crop. So basically, nowhere. Now, that's just what it says. I'm not reading that in and I'm not being skeptical there. It's not a winter grain crop. It's not. And if it's not a winter grain crop, then you cannot use it as a cover crop. If it's not a grain crop, if you can't grow it in the winter, then you can't grow it as a cover crop. That's what it's saying. And you can't grow it in the winter. It is less winter hardy than rye. Another warning. I didn't even pick up on it before the market. In zone 8 or warmer, it grows throughout the winter. It planted from September through February. Plantings before November 1st generally fare best, largely due to warmer soil conditions. But it must be able to grow. I say it's not a winter crop. But I say it's not a winter crop because of the warm temperatures of Jerusalem. Because they do grow, they tell us they grow barley there. And I have no reason not to believe it. But it's not cold there. Hold on. I keep selecting the wrong screen. It's not cold there in winter. Hold on. Where are the temperatures? Here we are. Hold on. So this is the only time they have rain. December, January, and February. So remember now, they're telling us that they start planting this in like 7 months before, 6 to 7 months before. And they let it sit September, October. No, they're plowing and digging and planting September and October. And then it sits November, December, January, February. And they harvest it at the beginning of the year. So I guess it's warm enough to sustain it in Jerusalem. What is a cover crop example? Examples of cover crop include mustard, alfalfa, rye, clover, buckwheat, cowpeas, radish, vetch, sundan grass, Australian winter peas, and more. Nothing about barley. Cover crops are green manure. That means that you, here it tells you, when a gardener turns them into the soil to provide organic matter and nutrients. And then it gives another list of winter crops that you can plant on your off seasons when you can't grow your regular crops because of the cold. Okay, I've got a lot of stuff in here about cover crops. Barley as a cover crop in the home garden is an excellent choice as it is drought tolerant and can be grown in many different soil mediums. And that may very well be true in a home garden where you can maintain the conditions. What season is barley planted? Plant in early spring once soil is workable. Barley requires at least 90 days from seed to harvest, so the earlier it is planted, the better chance of ripened seed before freezing temperatures encroach in warmer areas. Plant in fall for a spring harvest. Keep the weed free and moderately moist. I think we read that before. Again, it says to plant the barley in the spring. Plant it in the spring or plant it in the fall. Nothing about planting it in, the winter. Nothing about planting it in the winter. Because it would have to be planted in the winter in order to be ready in the spring. Why won't they just say that? They have the conditions for it. They have the conditions to plant it in the winter and have it survive through to the fall. Well, we'll look into it more and we'll determine why they don't tell us that. What month is barley harvested? Harvesting time of barley is depending on the time of sowing, cropping. Harvesting time of barley is depending on the time of sowing, cropping period, and maturity. Generally, cropping period of barley in the hills varies from 6 to 7 months. So, Rabbi barley is harvested from the end of April to the end of May. Oh, that's the 6th or 7th month. And the summer barley is harvested in September. So let's look at wheat. But we're going to stop here and we're going to pick up looking at the wheat agriculture on the next video. I'll see you there.